Hey guys, so this is Abe. Earlier tonight I was talking with one of my friends and we talked about something that is a belief that I've had for quite a while now, that I think is very useful, and it sounds like it helped him. So I just figured that instead of like waiting until things are more perfect, or like I have a good setup or whatever like that, I should just record something and put the message out there because it's valuable. So yeah, that is the purpose for the video. So, where do I start? So overall, throughout my life, I'm sure that's been the same for a lot of basically any other human being. I've held different beliefs about how either the world works or how things are, or like who I am, like what I'm capable of, like my value, different things like that. So with all of that, the one that my friend and I talked about tonight, that I think would also be very impactful, because I know it was extremely impactful in my life, was essentially this main concept. And the main concept is that for humans, like as a human being, with like a soul or a spirit or whatever you want to call it, all of us have value. We all have this intrinsic value, that's like it's a massive amount of value, and it's something, and like that value that you have just for being a human, just for having like a spirit or a soul or whatever you believe, is unchangeable. Like when each of us are born, we all have that immense amount of value that is unchangeable, and like that everyone has that no matter what, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Like, so that is something major, unchangeable. It's like hard to comprehend how much value you have. Same with every single human being on the planet, or depending on what you believe, other places too. But that's what I think. So just from what we know on the planet, but either way, we all have that amount of value, and it's unchangeable. And it's just a part of being human. It's an inherent part of being human and having a spirit or a soul. And the reason why I'm re-explaining that a few times is because it's really important to just understand that concept. And because with that, a lot of people might say they believe something like that, but then they don't actually think that, or don't fully comprehend and integrate that into themselves. So the reason why I thoroughly believe that now is because I've been through different points in my life where I didn't believe that. I didn't believe every human being had a massive intrinsic value that is unchangeable. I believe there's different things that I could, or that I would do, or depending on what I would do or what I would think, or based on other people even, that my value would change. There's sometimes where something happened and someone spread rumors about me, or someone made a comment that degraded me, or did something really amazing, and then I felt worse in comparison. But that is because I believed each of those different activities could change the amount of the intrinsic value that I have just for being a human being with a soul or a spirit or whatever. So, yeah, that's about a major thing. People, I think a lot of people, or the ego in sense, the egotistical mind kind of wants you to think that the different things that you do throughout the day or in life can change your worth and your value as a human being, but they can't. So if someone does something, if you do something stupid, if you're going through your day and let's say, for a really small example, because I've met people, and in my life too, I've reflected on myself negatively just for saying something stupid or saying something that doesn't make sense in the situation. Like I go up to someone and I call them by the wrong name, then I feel bad about that. Or like if I feel bad about that, do I then tell myself like, oh, I really screwed up, that's something that I can't do? Or gosh, I'm such an idiot, or something like that. Any of those negative thoughts. All of those, like the saying I'm such, or I'm just, or something with the I am, is kind of from the framework of saying that the whatever you did can change your value as a human being, and it can't. So if you start to believe that in a lot of different situations, like let's say, or let's just keep going off of that situation, and you start to believe that because you screwed up, that lowers your value. And even though that's a tiny example, like if you do it just once, it's wrong and it does affect you. Not very noticeably, not in a major way, but if you do that again and again throughout the day in a lot of different situations, then you're going to start perceiving like what happens or what you do or what other people do as impacting your core value as a human being, like your inherent value that you have for being a human being, and having like a spirit or a soul or like whatever you believe with that. So like that can happen in negative ways where someone can, or you can do something bad, or you can like say something, or like get a bad grade or whatever, and then you can start lowering your own value for that. That can also happen in the other way, where you can do something like really amazing, where you can donate a lot of money to a charity you care about. Like to do that, you could think of it like, oh, I donated to this charity, therefore my value as a human being goes up. And then like if you start to do that with a lot of different things, like, oh, I did this, I helped this person, I created this new device that helps other people, or I made the right call in this one situation, different things like that. That if you look at it to where that brings your like intrinsic value that you have for being a human being, with like a spirit or a soul up, then in contrast, that would seem like there's other people who are below you, who are less valuable than you, because they didn't do the same specific thing, or they did something and then, but it wasn't as good, it wasn't as acceptable as you did it, in your standards or someone else's standards. And with that, it is kind of dangerous to think that way, because then your intrinsic value as a human being that you get just for being a human being with like a spirit or a soul, that can go up and down depending on different circumstances, and depending on whether or not like what you did was acceptable or right or wrong. Like, I don't mean right and wrong and morally wrong, although I do. People screw up sometimes. They could do something right or wrong, morally wrong, or morally right. Like you could like steal a candy bar from your grandma. Like that would be morally wrong. But like little kids do stuff like that. So if they start attaching their value to that, that's going to just bring them down over time through the little things like that compound. But either way, the point is, when you get into that mindset of different things that you do changes your core value as a human being, that like really just changes your entire outlook on life, because instantly, by operating off of that framework, you're in a comparison game with everyone else. Like, so let's say you did something that you were really proud of, you like created this awesome thing, and then you made something happen, and then you volunteered for this group, and then you helped raise a lot of money, and you helped save a lot of like kids from starving. Like that's really good. That's a great thing to do. And then because of that, if because of that, when you're operating off of that comparison framework, you think you're really you feel like a really good person, you feel like you have more value than other people. Like other people would have like this much value, and you would think you have this much value. That way of thinking kind of puts you somewhere in the middle of this other group of people, because then you could look at someone on social media who did even more. Bill Gates, he donates a lot of money. He helps with different charities and things like that. And then you could be like, oh, my value as a human being is less than his because I didn't do that thing. Or the thing that I did wasn't as good as the thing he did. And therefore my value is smaller than his. And then the people who didn't do anything, their value as a human being is even smaller than that. But when you keep doing different things like that, it just really distorts the world. And it's not true. It doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But when you keep operating off of that way, it's really dangerous, because if you make different decisions and they're wrong decisions, or you just started getting really bad grades in school, and the bad grades is because of what you did to work on that project, or to how much time you put into the project, how many thoughts that you did, or even way before that, how many things you've learned throughout your whole life to get yourself to the baseline or above in that field. And then that also kind of determines how quickly or how easily you could finish this other project and then get a good score on that. But it's also based on somewhat the teacher's criteria, and then also their opinion too sometimes, which you're not supposed to do, but I feel like people do that a lot anyways. Not saying that's solely, but I think there's a little hint of that somewhere. But either way, it's all based off of all this criteria, either from yourself or other people. And then all of those different little actions, and happened, and then you taking one result from the middle of all of these different actions happening, and then deciding that changes your value as a human being, that either makes you more valuable or less valuable than other people, it's kind of crazy. It's just wrong. It doesn't make sense to do that. And if you really screw up, or you do something stupid, and then you go really far in debt, and then you feel bad about that, so you buy more stuff and to make you feel better, and then you go farther in debt, and then you just keep disappointing other people and keep disappointing yourself, and then you just go to the bottom. And then this didn't happen to me, by the way, which I'm glad about, but I'm sure it happens to other people. And then you just keep going down until there's it feels like there's a bottom, but then and then you still want to get better, or you want to change things, but then you don't really know what to do. The sense of value that you have is so small in compared to everyone else. You feel like you have this much value, or other people have this much value. Then you're just going to start thinking, how can I be more valuable as a person? How can I become a better person? With the presupposition being that your value as a person is this small, and that your value, and that you're not a good person, or you're not a better person. And then that question, how can I become a better person, or how can I become as good as everyone else, is just a totally flawed question. Because the presupposition within that question, which basically means the facts that are implicit in what you're asking, it is flawed. What I said, if you're asking, how can I become as good as everyone else, or how can I become a better person, or how can I not be a terrible person, different things like that, then you're assuming that your value is smaller than other people's. Or even if you're asking, how come all these other people suck? Or why is John so terrible? And like for the Johns that I've known throughout my life, I'm not directing this at you, I'm just using that as like a common name example. But why is like John so terrible? Then I'm laughing because I just thought about like a John that I knew, and it's like that doesn't even make sense. I don't think he was a bad guy or whatever. But if you're thinking like that, and then like how am I so much better than everyone else? How am I like much higher on this ranking? How do I have more value than other people? Then you're also limiting the value of other people, and that will change your actions and how you treat them and different things like that. And it also leaves you vulnerable to shrinking your value too, to a much smaller amount and then going down that way. So you could be changing the amount of value that you have based on those different things that happen or those different decisions that you make. And all of that's false. And like the presupposition that I was saying is false, because your intrinsic value that you have as a human being, like with just by being a human and having like a spirit or a soul or like whatever different thing you believe, but like the thing within us. I'm using a soul as a good example because that's what I believe, or like a spirit. I don't know a precise term for that, but everyone, for being a person with that, has a massive amount of intrinsic value. And with that, you can't change that value no matter what you do. And like, that's really important because like, let's go back to the example where the guy was like, he started off in debt, and then he started like buying things to make him feel better, and then he went more in debt, and then he started just really feeling like he was not very valuable. He started feeling like, oh, all these other people are so much better. There's no way they would want to help him, or they're like, there's nothing he can contribute to society. And then like, let's say, like some people do this unfortunately, but like, what if he started using drugs or something like that? Is that guy who did that such a bad person because he's using drugs? Is he just not valuable as a human being at all? Or he's so much less valuable as a human being because he did drugs or because he's doing that? And you could, if you say the answer is yet, then one of the major things, there's several things that you're leaving out, but one of the major things is that, well, like there's other people who have done that, and then like they've changed. And the thing that I believe that they didn't change was their value as a human being. The thing that I think they changed was their actions or their decisions. And your decision can be either what you focus on. You can, like, I don't really think the decision of what you're thinking really applies to that, because people can like try and focus on something really intensely, and then some random thought can pop into their mind. So like really being a tyrant down to that level doesn't make any sense. That's why I call it being like a tyrant, because it's ineffective at best. But I think it's the decisions that you make and the actions that you take that can be more valuable or less valuable. Because like the intrinsic value of every human being is the same from when we're born, or whatever time you define as being alive. We all have that same massive amount of value that is unchangeable. Nothing you can do can change that. Or like your spirit or your soul, it has this massive amount of value. And like you can attempt to change it, or you can think it's changing, but really what's happening when you're thinking it's changing is you are, in a sense, deluded in believing that, oh, my value is less than other people. So you start operating off of that framework, like that's your identity, where you think, oh, this has happened, so what do I need to do? I need to prove myself to other people, or I need to like do this thing, or if I don't do everything right now, then I'm just going to become less valuable, or different things like that. And really all that does is have you not focus on the actual problem, and instead just leaves you down the path of making worse and worse decisions or less valuable decisions. Or like you could make more valuable decisions, but either way, your value as a human being doesn't change no matter what. It's a lot. It's like incomprehensible how much, or incomprehensible how much value each person has, and it's unchangeable. There's nothing at all you can do to change it. But like the thing that you can change, which is separate from your value as a person, is your actions and your decisions. So back to that person, if they were making, like, going down that route of like feeling like their value changes, or like their values are lower than other people's, then, and they don't realize, and like they don't see that that's not the truth. They don't see that they have a massive amount of value that they can't lower or make bigger than other people's. Then they're going to keep making the wrong decisions because they're not going to know whether like that it's the decisions themselves that is creating your perception of that. You're not going to figure out that, oh, the only thing that got me to this point was my different decisions, or it was the different actions I made, or it was the different things I said, or the different actions that he did to either communicate with people, or to change something in his life, or to create something, or to like spend more, or whatever. It was the actions that were either more valuable or less valuable, or that were either good or bad, or however you want to define it. Or that were, I think more valuable and less valuable is like a really good way to define that. And then, so if you make bad decisions, you're going to go down a path where things just or like your decisions are between one bad decision and a less bad decision, or either way still like a less valuable action or a more valuable action. But like your worth as a human being doesn't change what you do, and therefore doesn't change the outcome. So the only control over is your decisions, or the different actions you take. So with all of that, like instead of feeling like he was trying to change the amount of value he had, if he actually focused on changing the decisions or changing the actions, no matter what it was, no matter how difficult it was, even if someone was like addicted to drugs and like their goal was to like go one day without like doing this type of drug, and they just couldn't do it, then if they messed up and they did it, are they a bad person for doing that? Is it really them that is so terrible, or that is less valuable than other people because they made that mistake? Or is it the action that they made that was bad? And then their value as a human being stayed the same. It's this massive amount that can't change, that's intrinsic to every human with like a spirit or a soul or whatever. So and the correct answer with that is it's the action. The action is bad. So therefore, instead of judging yourself at your core, like if like changing your amount of value as a human that is intrinsic, that you can't change, then the obvious answer is to change the action or change the decision. And that works really well because your decisions and actions are really the only things that can change the external world, or change what's going on around you, or change different parts of your life. Like in many cases, if you if like I'm trying to think of like a great example, but I could just use any example. And then if there's anything you want to like bring up, I could like talk about that too, and how that would make sense. Or if it changes my belief, then that would be interesting. But an example. So someone without like major health problems, or without like a crisis in their life that they needed to do this for. So if someone was like just spending a lot more than they make every day, and they kept making those decisions over and over again, then the thing that they need to focus on changing isn't, oh, okay, or isn't their value as a human being, because that stays the same. Changing that is first of all impossible, and is not going to change what they do. The thing that's going to change what they do is changing their decisions, changing their actions. They could decide to learn about ways to not go in debt, or decide to learn about like different things that they can do throughout the day to save money or spend money, or spend less money or make more money, and then get themselves out of that. Or if they're like really in debt, then they can like make the decision of like, okay, what will help me get in a position where I can start from the middle and then try and go up. But either way, it's the actions or the decisions to act or learn or talk to someone or say one word over a different one is what changes the course of their reality, of their experience. And then also, it puts you in a much clearer mindset of how to operate in your everyday life, to where it's like, so if you, I think I've pretty well explained it, but one of the things that I learned from Stoicism, from the stuff that I read about that, is that you shouldn't condemn yourself, you should condemn your actions. Don't condemn the person, condemn their actions. And that's like saying, okay, if I eat a candy bar today and that's not going to help my health, am I such a terrible person for eating that candy bar? Am I like a stupid idiot, or am I like just really dumb, or really all these other labels? Or was the simple thing that it was a bad decision to eat that candy bar when I shouldn't have? I mean, like, it's pretty obvious. It was the decision to eat that was bad. It wasn't me that was bad. It was the decision I made. So how do I change that? I figure out what decision I made, and then I make a different decision next time. Or I set up a system to help me make a different decision next time. Or like, there's a billion different things that you can do, but it all comes down to your decisions and your actions. That changes what's going on. So that's about it. Don't judge yourself, judge your actions. You are not more or less valuable. Your actions are more or less valuable. So it's not you that's screwed up. You as a human being who like has a spirit or soul or whatever, who has a massive amount of intrinsic value just for being human. It's not that changes. It's the decisions or the actions, or like overall the different things that you do, that is either more valuable or less valuable. And then to jump into that, to show an example of how that's true. Like, it's not the person's, it's not like the value as a human being that makes bad or good things happen. It's the actions that make bad or good things happen. And one of like, going to some massive examples. One of them is like, for a negative one, is like Hitler. Like, he did a lot of bad things. You could say he was a terrible person, and I agree. Like, he did terrible things, like super awful things that just should have never happened. And the world would have been better without like different things that he did. But like, when he was a baby, he wasn't evil. When he was first born, for his first couple months of life, he didn't cause a bunch of deaths of different people. It, like, who he was when he was born was a normal human being. And as a normal human being, he still had an intrinsic amount of value that can't be changed. So his value as a human being, as a human life, didn't go up or down. And even like when he made different mistakes, like he fell a few times learning how to walk, that didn't bring his value down as a human being. So I still think that everyone, no matter who they are or what they do, they still have a intrinsic value as a human being. But people can certainly do really terrible things. And the key word there is do. Like, for all of the things that happened because of what Hitler did, would it have mattered if his name was Adolf Hitler or if his name was, like, I don't really know many German names, but if it was like Zach Gutenberg? So if it was, would that change things massively? Like, if a guy who wasn't named Adolf Hitler, but who was named Zach Gutenberg, if he took the exact same actions that Hitler did, the terrible thing would have still happened. So it wasn't necessarily that Adolf Hitler was super, super bad as a human being and his value went down, just that his actions were so awful and so terrible. And like, there's a lot of things wrong with him. But the point is that no matter who did those actions, no matter what their name was when they were born, or like, no matter if they had if they had blue eyes or green eyes or something like that when they were when they were born or whatever, it's not necessarily the person, it's the actions and the decisions that were really bad. Because Hitler, he made a lot of super terrible decisions that led to a super terrible catastrophe where a lot of people died, and that was really, really messed up. But if he made different decisions early on in his life, like I've heard from, I think I heard from like history class or something, that as a kid he was really into art. If he made the decision to pursue art instead of to pursue like government or politics or whatever, or pursue hating people or writing books or whatever, if he instead pursued art and painting or like oil pastels or whatever like that, if he made a different decision, a lot of things would have been better with the world. But because of the decisions that he made, the different actions he took, the different things that he focused on, the world got a lot worse. So if it wasn't Adolf Hitler, but it was like this other guy who grew up in the same town, who like looked like basically the same, or had like the same beliefs and different things like that, if it was like his neighbor who basically did a lot of things the same, but then in different instances kept making the less valuable decisions that would be less valuable to humanity overall, then it wouldn't matter if he had the same name or like had the same exact genetic makeup and like name and parents and all of that. It wouldn't matter exactly who it was. It was the decisions that were terrible. And he definitely made a bad decision about not deciding whether those decisions were good or bad, or he definitely made a bad decision of what to focus on and what to think is good. But nonetheless, all of those were different things, different actions that took place. It wasn't like as a baby, he was super evil and just like had this whole set thing in motion that could never be like changed away from as he was a baby. It's not like as a baby he did all these terrible things. It was the different decisions that he made to make all of these terrible things happen. So yeah, but that's like a really extreme bad example, but I think extreme examples do articulate different things pretty well. But also on the good note, for a person who does a lot of good, who was a person who did a lot of good? Like Martin Luther King Jr. He did a lot of really good things. So like he really helped the civil rights movement a lot. He like inspired a lot of people and like organized like these different things to really get progress moving forward in the like period of time in the country that was like really messed up. But either way, intrinsically, as a human being, when he was born, he still had the same amount of value as everyone else. He still had a ton of intrinsic value for being a human being. And he couldn't, like, nothing can change that. But the value of Martin Luther King Jr.'s actions and the value of his decisions were much better. Like, he probably made some bad decisions for different points in his life. But he made a lot of very valuable decisions. So again, for that, like Martin Luther King Jr., he did amazing, really good things, like from what I learned about him. And he helped a lot of different people and like really set in motion a lot of different things forward. But you can notice with what I'm saying is that every time I'm talking about good things, I'm using verbs, action words, because he had to do things. He had to make decisions. He had to focus on different things. He had to learn about different things. He had to make decisions, or he just made, in like a fork in the road, he took the right way instead of the wrong way, or he took the more valuable route instead of the less valuable route. And more valuable just being about the decisions, because his value as a person doesn't change. But his decisions, they were super valuable. They helped a lot of different people. And again, for that, it wouldn't really matter if someone who was instead of Martin Luther King Jr., if it wasn't him who made all of those decisions, and Martin Luther King, like let's say Martin Luther King Jr. just made different decisions and he like just did a bunch of kind of average things. Like he did some good, some bad things. Like he didn't really make very good decisions all the time, or at least like a chunk of the time, or at least for like different things that matter. Or if Martin Luther King Jr., like let's say he believed that his value was lower as a human being, then he would have started taking different actions that would try and confirm his belief even though it wasn't true, and therefore just make less and less valuable decisions over time, and therefore wouldn't have had the positive impact that he had. But instead, luckily he made a lot of really good decisions and like changed the world in a massive positive way. So his decisions were amazing. He had made really good decisions. But even if in that time there was someone else who made a lot of the same decisions that Martin Luther King Jr. made. He made a lot of he made the same decisions but was a different person. Or he made he could have made better decisions, or he made very similar decisions, because Martin Luther King Jr. was on that other path that I talked about. If he still did the same thing, if someone else still did the same thing and took the same actions and focused on the same things and learned about the same things and believed the same things and all of that, then a lot of the things that Martin Luther King Jr. changed would have still really positive, or that just sounded so dumb. But you see what I did there? I didn't say I sounded so dumb. My value as a human being didn't drop. Just the decision that I made to do this really late at night when I'm tired. It's 1 a.m. and just not fully think my thought before I said it was a negative decision. It wasn't me. My value didn't shrink because I made a mistake. Instead, it was that decision was less valuable. So now in the future, I know to make a different one. And then even if I mess up again, was it me that was bad, or was it the decision that was bad? It was the decision, and then I can change it. But if someone else made the exact same decisions and was in the same situation, and they had a different name, what if instead of Martin Luther King Jr., it was Tommy Jason Queen Sr. or something like that. If they still had, that would be an interesting name, but if they still had made the same decisions and still like focused in all of that, like actually changed what they were doing and what they were thinking and what they were believing and what they were, and like what they focused on. If they changed those things, then we would still have all of the positive impacts that had happened. Like the civil rights movement would have still like made like improved massively, and like a lot of different things would have improved massively, and like things would have been progressing forward to where it's like makes more sense. It's like it's more morally right. Like then was less discrimination and all of that, and like from what I understand now, it's like it's been getting better because of the decisions Martin Luther King Jr. made, and that if someone else made those decisions, it would be better because of the decisions that guy made. It's not because, as a person, one of them was just way more valuable than the other. Like you can't really say that. Like Martin Luther King Jr. would be such an amazing guy, or he wouldn't be like, oh, he's so much better than everyone else, if what he did instead of making all of those more valuable decisions was go and rob banks all the time. Then your opinion on that would change. But either way, it's about the decisions. The decisions are the only thing to judge. The decisions that people make, or what they focus on, or what they choose to do, or what they think, or different things like that. The decisions are the good or the bad, or the more valuable or the less valuable. Your intrinsic value as a human being doesn't ever change. Everyone who's human and has like a spirit or a soul or whatever you want to believe has a ton of it, like an incomprehensible amount, and we all have the same set amounts. Just some people make more valuable decisions and then therefore like produce more good in the world, and some people make less valuable decisions and then produce like less good in the world. But it's not you that's bad, or it's not you that's good and better than everyone else. It's different decisions that you made. Some of them were more valuable, some of them were less, and then that gives you an opportunity to like see reality as it is and see that your decisions are changing like what's going on instead of your value as a person, because that never changes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a major thing. I feel like I over-explained a lot of that, but it's late at night and I just wanted to do it, and hopefully if anyone sees this, it will be valuable for you. And if anything doesn't make sense, because like some of it probably doesn't, because I haven't made the decision to really study explaining things very clearly all the time, or haven't made the decision to make that a main focus for me, or haven't made like a series of decisions throughout my life to make me better at explaining things at this point, then like let me know, and hopefully I can fix that or help in some way. But even if like this was a terrible video, it's not me that was terrible. It's because my value as a human being doesn't change no matter what I do. And like everyone has a massive amount of value intrinsically just for being a human, having like a spirit or a soul or whatever. That doesn't change. But the decisions and actions I took, those can improve, or they can get worse. But either way, it's the decisions that matter, the decisions that change. And instead of judging other people, thinking like their value is less than yours or their value is more than yours, I've just been looking at people and valuing their decisions. Like, okay, so let's say this person, like, let's say I got robbed. Like, I got robbed by someone. They stole like my wallet with like, I don't have much cash, so they probably stole like $20 or something, but they stole my computer, like my phone, and all this other stuff. Like it wouldn't be that person who stole from me has less value as a human being than I do, and it wouldn't be that I have more value as a human being than they do. And it wouldn't be the other way around where they have more human or value as a human being than I do, and I have less value as a human being than they do. It wouldn't be any of those things. We would have the same amount of intrinsic value for being a human being and having like a spirit or a soul or whatever. Instead, it was that we're less valuable, or at least certainly less valuable for me, because like that's kind of subjective. Although I'm sure there's a lot of things that we can overall agree on. For example, a lot of the decisions that Hitler made were terrible, super morally wrong, and I feel like that's pretty universal and clear to see. But like, it wasn't the person who would have stolen from me in that like scenario. It would have been the decisions that they made that were really bad or really unvaluable for me. It could be more valuable for them, but I feel like down the line it wouldn't be, because I just feel like when you do wrong things, like morally wrong things that you know are wrong, then it kind of comes back at you in some way. But that's a different belief than the other ones I'm talking about. But yeah, I think I might have over-explained it a bit more, but that's another example. And that is the end of the video. So I'm probably just going to post this tomorrow morning and hope it helps somebody. I don't think anyone's going to watch this. Maybe my family will, or like some of my friends. But if it does help anyone else, that would be cool. And if it doesn't help, well, I'll work on making a better decision next time, or change my decisions, or change what I'm doing to make it better, or make something else better, or go on a different path of actions that can create something that would be helpful for more people. But yeah, that's overall it. I hope that helped. If it did, please let me know in the comments, or in a message, or some form of communication where I can get your feedback so I can understand how this was received and how it did. So, but that has helped me a major amount. That helped me out of some like rough places, and it just makes sense. And I haven't found an example that can break that yet. So it still is my belief, and I hope it helps you. Have a great night.